Hey everybody, thanks so much for joining us today. I hope the content encourages you and helps you build your faith. Now enjoy the message.
James 1, 2-4 says, "Dear brothers and sisters, when troubles come your way, consider it an opportunity for great joy. For you know that when your faith is tested, your endurance has a chance to grow. So let it grow. For when your endurance is fully developed, you will be perfect and complete, needing nothing." Quick question for you. Let's do a poll. Let's see who the real ones are in the room. Who in here has been in a fist fight before? I want to see you. I want to see your hands. I want to see you. Come on, show me. Some of you, I'm like, yeah, I figured that. Don't be shy. I was almost in one last week. There's this guy speeding through my neighborhood, and look, I'm saved, but God's still working on me. You put my kids in danger, and we're gonna get to anybody. I'm looking at anybody in the balcony. You've been in a fist fight before. A couple of you. Ooh, really? A couple of you, I'm surprised about it. I'm like, really? You need to tell me that story after church. Hey, when I was a freshman incoming into high school, we had this upperclassman. His name was I shouldn't tell you his name. This is on the internets, right? But he was a junior, and he had this thing where he picked on constantly the underclassmen. And I was a freshman, my buddy was a freshman. I mean, he's constantly talking all this mess, and he would say these things to us, and anytime we said something back to him, it was like he felt like he just had to escalate, you know? And then it was like, oh, you want some of me? And I need a helper. Do we have somebody? Come on, yeah, you're good. Run up here. You clean? And when was the last time you were around somebody who had symptoms? No, I was kidding. All right, you ready? And this guy would do this. Here's what he would do. He'd be like, oh, you want to talk back to me? You want to say something to me? And then he'd go, hold me back, bro. Hold me back, bro. And he would get his boys, and he'd pull his boys in. And he'd be like, you see, you hold me back or I'm going to knock you out, bro. Good job, man. Give the guy a hand. That was his game, right? And it drove us crazy. We were like, what is he doing? Like, who is it? Oh, you want to talk back to me? Hold me back. But one time his buddies got sick of his gimmick, and he started popping off to my friend, and my friend was no one to joke with, right? You all have a friend who's just like no one to joke with. Yeah. He started talking to my buddy. I was like, oh, this could go really bad. And my friend clapped right back at him, and he was like, hold me back, bro. And his friend goes like this. And he was like, wait. Well, you better watch what you say. You don't say it again. My friend right back at him. And he's like, come on, man, come on. I'm going to hurt this kid. And then all of a sudden, none of his buddies would buy into his gimmick. And you know what my friend did? It was like the funniest YouTube phantom punch in the world. My friend punched this kid right in the forehead. It wasn't like punched him in the nose and busted him, punched him in the jaw. And knocked him. He just clocks him right in the forehead. And the kid goes, he's like, I can't see, bro. I can't see. He punched me in the forehead. And what had happened was we recognized his actions wouldn't match his words. Oh, he loved to talk. Oh, he loved to say all these big things and make all these big threats and then have his boys hold him back. But when it came time to act on what his words were saying, he didn't have the action to back them up. You want to know where James goes with the book of James? You talk about in your face, powerful. James is saying, whole book, I'll give you the context here in a minute. Don't come at me with all this talk. I want that action. Don't come at me with all the talk. Don't talk about this and talk about that and talk about what you'll do here and talk about how you'll give here and do this here and help here and serve here and love here and treat people like this here and love her better here and love him better. Hey, get out of here with all that talk. Give me some of that action. That's the book of James. Let me give you the context so that we can frame this really, really well. I love this book. This one has a chance of becoming my favorite book in Scripture. James was the author of the book of James. He is the half-brother of Jesus, okay? He is speaking to all Christians. He says in chapter 1, verse 1, to the 12 tribes of Israel scattered throughout the nations, and he is speaking after ascension to a Galatians 3 Israel, which is all believers in Jesus Christ, right? So he is saying this is to all of the church. Here is your message. And now here is the most important thing about the book of James. Catch this, and the next however many weeks are going to make perfect sense. James was not a follower of Jesus when he was on earth. In fact, James thought he was full of it. Let me read you John 7, 1 through 5. Do we have it, guys? On this? Yes, we do. Perfect. Okay. John 7, 1 through 5, it says, after this, by the way, you have on the Church Center app, it says sermon notes on there. You can follow along with every note. I just upload all of my notes for the message there. You can see all of the scriptures and follow along with all of the scriptures there. But John 7, 1 through 5, it says, after this, Jesus traveled around Galilee. He wanted to stay out of Judea where the Jewish leaders were plotting his death, okay? He's saying, I don't want to go to Judea. They want to kill me there. Verse 2, but soon it was time for the Jewish festival of shelters, and Jesus' brothers said to him, listen to what James says to him, leave here and go to Judea, where your followers can see your miracles. You can't become famous if you hide like this. If you can do such wonderful things, show yourself to the world. Verse 5, for even his brothers didn't believe in him. They were mocking Jesus. They were saying, oh, you got these miracles? Go show them to Judea. They want to kill you, but if you're really the magician, they're going to buy into you. Even his brothers didn't believe in him. Why? That's what you do when your half-brother tells you he's the Son of God. Right? Come on, you guys I got two older half-brothers. If they called me today and said, hey man, just wanted you to know, I happen to be the Son of God. I'm going to walk the earth, die on the cross for your sins, and rise from the dead, and one day I'll be at the right hand of God, and you'll see me again. I'd be like, bro, you need to quit eating those Jack in the Box tacos from the Chevron station, because you are messed up. You know, like, there's something wrong with that stuff. It's crazy, right? That's the situation that they're in. His half-brother is saying, you are absolutely out of your mind. Listen to Mark 3, 20 through 21, another story. It says, one time Jesus entered a house, and the crowds began to gather again. Soon, he and his disciples couldn't even find time to eat. Verse 21, when his family heard, another translation says, when his family and brothers heard what was happening, they tried to take him away. He is out of his mind, they said. They literally tried to have him committed to a mental institution. They're like, Jesus has lost it. What has happened? Because that's what you do when your half-brother tells you he's the Son of God. You're like, you're going to the nut house. They didn't even buy into him. They didn't believe in him. They thought he was nuts. Now, imagine being Jesus when you utter these words in Matthew 13, verse 57. It says, and they were deeply offended and refused to believe in him. Then Jesus told them, think about the sting here for Jesus. A prophet is honored everywhere except in his own hometown and among his own family. He's saying, man, crowds will listen to me. Masses of people will listen to me. My own brothers think I'm nuts. My own family wants nothing to do with me. They'd rather lock me away than receive what I'm trying to say. You get the context of James. Flips full script, and in 40 AD comes out and writes this letter to the church of absolute, full-on belief in Jesus. One thing happened. Action. He saw Jesus do it. He saw Jesus go to the cross. He saw Jesus die on the cross. If you want an apologetic defense for the gospel, you got the half-brother of Jesus saying he's nuts, going all the way to, he died a martyr's death. James was taken to the top of the temple. They forced him to deny Jesus, and when he wouldn't, they threw him over the temple. He landed on the ground. When he didn't die, the mob came down and bashed his head in with a club and killed him because he wouldn't deny Jesus. He goes from thinking he's nuts, committed to a mental institution, to being willing to be thrown off a temple and have his head bashed in for his faith. One thing, action. Jesus did it. He went to the cross. He died on the cross. He rose again. He appeared to 515 people, and he ascended to be with the Father. And James said, that's it. It's true. That's it. I'm in. Not only does he believe in Jesus, but he writes a letter about action. He says, action changed my life. Faith in action transformed me, so faith in action will transform you. Listen to how he describes himself in James 1, verse 1. He says, this letter is from James, a slave of God and of the Lord Jesus Christ. Now, with that context, right, we've got James, the half-brother that thought Jesus was nuts. Then he saw Jesus take action and go to the cross and rise from the dead and ascend to the Father, and he fully buys in his heart belief in Jesus as the Messiah, the Son of God. Then he writes the book of James. This passage, James chapter 2, will frame the entire book for us, okay? So we're going to take this piece, and this is the lens that we see the entire book from. Are you ready? It's James 2, 14 through 20. Now that you know the context, James is a man of action. Let me see you do something. Here you go. James 2, 14 through 20. What good is it, dear brothers and sisters, if you say you have faith, but don't show it by your actions? Can that kind of faith save anyone? In other words, what good is it if you walk around and tell everyone you're the Son of God, but you don't go to the cross? What good is it if you just speak about it, but you don't do it? Suppose you see a brother or sister who has no food or clothing, and you say, goodbye and have a good day, stay warm and eat well, but then you don't give that person any food or clothing. What good does that do? So you see, faith by itself isn't enough. Unless it produces good deeds, it is dead and useless. Verse 18, now someone may argue, some have faith, others have good deeds. But I say, how can you show me your faith if you don't have good deeds? I will show you my faith by my good deeds. You say you have faith, for you believe that there is one God. Good for you. Even the demons believe this, and they tremble in terror. How foolish. Can't you see that faith without good deeds is useless? I need to align a theological tension really quick on the front end, because when we hear, can that faith save anyone? The word used for save is a Greek word that changes in meaning based upon context and usage. In other words, there is saved salvation and there is saved situation. We do the same exact thing with the word, right? Jesus saved my life, right? Jesus saved me from that relationship. Two totally different content. Jesus saved my life, I'm going to heaven. Jesus saved me from that relationship. He just saved me from some idiot I shouldn't have been with in the first place, right? There's a huge difference in the context. When we go to Paul in Romans 3:28, he says, you have been saved by faith apart from works. He is speaking to justification, to salvation. We are saved apart from works by the grace of Jesus Christ. But when James brings up in James 2:14, can that faith save anyone? He is speaking to a situation. In other words, he's not talking about salvation, he's speaking to situation, and he's saying faith alone isn't enough for your situation. Listen, Faith alone is not going to save your marriage if you just can't quit being a jerk. There's action. You got to do something. Faith alone is not going to lead you to a transformed, renewed, thriving relationship with Jesus. You're going to have to take some action. If you're saying, I got a ton of faith, but I can't get out of bed in the morning. I got a ton of faith, but I ain't got enough faith to read this. I don't got enough faith to spend time in prayer. I don't got enough faith to walk with then James is saying faith is useless. It's not going to help you in your situation. This is a situational, can it save you? In other words, and this is our phrase for the season, saving faith will produce situational action. Saving faith, the faith that has saved me and transformed me, is going to produce situational action in my life. That is the road to maturity. I am not preaching a salvation by works. I am preaching a situation by faith. Your faith will lead you to situational action. You will do things differently because you've been saved. This is the lens that we see the entire book through. Now, when you read James, the question you ask yourself is this: what is the action that my faith would lead me to take here? What is the action that my faith is calling me to take? You'll see it over and over and over with almost every sentence of the book. You're going to see James essentially saying, faith will lead you to this action. Consider it pure joy, my brothers, when you face trials of many kind. Faith will lead you to this action. You'll find great joy. Let me read you again our passage now that we're going to study. James 1, 2 through 4. He says, Dear brothers and sisters, when troubles of any kind come your way, consider it an opportunity for great joy. Faith will lead you to the action of having great joy in a trial. Verse 3. For you know that when your faith is tested, your endurance has a chance to grow. So let it grow. For when your endurance is fully developed, you will be perfect and complete, needing nothing. My goodness, aren't you thankful for a faith that will change our actions? Am I in here alone? Facebook, I promise you I'm not alone in this. Are you not thankful for a faith that will change your actions? I am so thankful I'm not doing the same things I was doing when I was 20 years old. Man, I am so thankful that faith changed my actions. That faith changed the things I'm doing. I hate when I hear people say, that's just the way I am. Guess what? It may be, but faith can change the way you are. Faith can bring you to a new action. Faith can call you to do something different. That's the message that James is communicating. James 1, verse 2. We're going to walk through these 3 verses now, almost word by word. Oh, yeah, it's 11:40, and I still got 15 in me. You got 15 in you? I told you we got to make up for church, right? James 1, verse 2. Dear brothers and sisters, when troubles of any kind come your way, consider it an opportunity for great joy. That Greek verb for consider is talking about thought in opposition to emotion. Such a powerful word. In other words, he's saying, don't feel it. Think differently about it. Don't let your feelings tell you something. Let your thoughts tell you something. In opposition to how you feel, think this sort of way. He is saying faith will change the way you think. So he says, think when troubles come your way, consider or think as opposed to feel it an opportunity for great joy. Great joy is not speaking to the trouble itself. We're not walking around saying, oh, thank God for coronavirus, right? I just have great joy, and I consider it an opportunity to strengthen me. No, he's not speaking to the troubles. He's saying that in spite of the troubles, my faith will lead me to taking the action of being rooted in a stable, peace-filled joy, because that's what faith causes me to decide. Because faith has changed the way I think. Consider it means I'm going to think about it opposed to how I feel about it, so I can have something in it that may not be visible, right? I heard a story, actually I read a story the other day, such a powerful story. You high school seniors and all of you graduating and everything else, you all need to hear this one. And so it was a story about a kid who was just failing miserably at his grades, and he was a senior in high school. He didn't care. He wasn't giving any effort. He didn't do anything. He was getting D's, and he was failing other classes. And his mom went to him, and she said, "Honey, would you take the SAT?" The SAT's a two-part test of reading and writing and math. Each have 800, a total score of 1,600. And she said, "Honey, just please go take the SAT." He was like, "Man, I felt really bad. I was upsetting my mom. I went and took the SAT." He goes and takes it. 2 weeks later, an envelope arrives at his house. He goes to his mom. He said, "Here you go. I did it. Enjoy." Walked away. Said he didn't even look at the envelope. She opened it up and she started screaming. "Oh my gosh, this is crazy. Honey, come here." He's like, "Mom, what is wrong? I told you I was stupid. If it's a zero, it's a zero." You know, like, what do you want? And she said, "Honey, you got a 1480 on your SAT. That's top 1%. That's an unbelievable score. The national average is 1,059. You got a 1480. She's like, "Son, you got a 1480. Like, you are brilliant." And he was like, "Really?" Like, "I am?" So he said all of a sudden, he started thinking to himself, "My goodness, I got an SAT score in the top % of the country. Maybe I ought to try in school." So he spent the rest of his senior year giving an effort. And so he was studying and he was doing his homework, and he had teachers saying, "Man, we must have missed it on this kid." All of a sudden, he's sitting in the A row. He's sitting up front, and he's learning, he's growing, he's doing all these great things. And he's finishing his homework, and he turned his grades around from failing in D's to A's and B's. At his graduation, the principal acknowledged him for being one of the greatest turnaround stories in the history of their school. He took all of that and he said, "You know what? I might as well apply for an Ivy League school. I'm rolling with my grades. I'm smarter than I thought." He sends in this application with his SAT score and a testimony from his principal, and guess what? They accepted him. So then he goes to this Ivy League school. He gets this degree in technology. He starts working for a massive tech company, and he's making a ton of money, and life is great, and he's just rolling. And then 12 years later, a letter arrives to his mom's house. She calls him. She says, "Honey, you need to talk. We need to talk." He goes to his mom's house, and she hands him a piece of paper. And it says that he was one of 4 people that year that were given the wrong SAT score. His actual score was a 740, which is a terrible score, below average. And he's sitting there, and he said he started looking at the last 12 years of his life. Everything that he changed, from failing out of school to getting grades to going to an Ivy League school to getting a great job, and he recognized something. It wasn't the 1480 that changed everything. It was thinking like a 1480 that changed everything in his life. Can I tell you something? You got to start thinking like you are redeemed. You have to start thinking like you are, come on, somebody in here is with me. You have to start thinking like you've been transformed. You have to start thinking like you have the value that Christ has paid and put on you. You have to start thinking like a person of faith. What would my faith cause me to do in this situation? Your power comes when you fix this thinking. Faith changes the way you think. James rolls into verse 3. He says, "For you know that when your faith is tested, your endurance has a chance to grow." So good. I love when it's tested by the actions that it produces. So your faith is growing when it's tested, and the actions are evidence of that faith, right? So we get that. He's saying your faith is tested when the actions, keep it in context here, when the actions that we're talking about are evident in your decision making, your faith is tested. In other words, what is informing your actions? That's a great self-inventory question. What is informing the reason and the way I do things? Is it my own pride? Is it my selfishness? Is it my anger? Is it my frustration? Is it social media? Is it what people think of me? Do I spend so much time working on the exterior while my soul is going to nothing because the one thing informing my decisions is the amount of likes that I get? What's informing my decision? Is it friends? Is it the influence of other people? Is it what they say to me? Is it what they say about me? Is it what they're going through? What's informing my action? James, this is the heart of maturity. You want to enter the road to longevity and you want to have endurance in your faith. It starts right here. Is my faith informing my actions? Am I tempted to click, but my faith tells me, men, don't look at that? What is informing my actions? What's speaking to my soul? What is the reason? If you've never asked this and you're saying to yourself, I don't know, that's great. You have the answer right now. It's your faith. Put it before every decision that you make. What is my faith asking me to do here? What would my faith want me to do here? How would my faith want me to respond here? My faith begins to lead my decision making. When that happens and it's tested and it's true, I enter the path to endurance. Let me tell you what endurance is. Endurance is faith stretched out over time. Say, how do I get to endurance? Endurance is faith that's leading you to action stretched out over a long period of time. When you get to that place, you are entering into maturity. You are growing in your. This is the difference between people who have been chasing Jesus for 10 years and they're still a one-year Christian, and people who are a 10-year Christian because every year they're growing and they're stacking longevity and faith decisions on top of faith decisions on top of faith decisions. When I meet somebody who says, I've been following Jesus for 10 years and I don't have this right and I can't do this right and I keep doing this and I keep making it, I'm saying, no, you've been following Jesus 1 year 10 times, because we haven't started with the faith that's informing your decisions. That's how you have spiritual endurance. When you meet somebody who's been walking with Jesus for 30 years and been stacking faith action on faith action on faith action, they are able to endure, walk through, and go through things that you could never imagine doing yourself. Why? Endurance is faith stretched out over time. Endurance is those faith actions over and over. We had this slime, because what do you do during a pandemic when you got kids in your house? You just start making stuff, right? I've made more things out of PVC and flour and cornstarch and all this. I got Play-Doh everywhere. My walls are covered. I got this stuff ground into my carpet. And we made this slime, and we were stretching it out, and when we started stretching it out, it was really difficult at first, right? Because it's just this blob, and it won't stretch anything. But then something happened. The more we got to stretch it, the further it went. And it got crazy in our home. I went to the top of the stairs, and I was stretching the slime down, and my son, he got a hold of it at the bottom of the stairs. He passed it off to Mom. Mom passed it off to Zion. Zion passed it off to Auntie. Auntie passed it back off to Maul, and then Maul passed it back to Cannon. It went back up the stairs, and all of a sudden, when you started stretching it out over time, it got to go so much further. That's what James is saying. You want to go further in your faith? Just stretch out faith action over time, and you will get to that place of longevity. You will get to places in your faith you never imagined you would go before. And then we'll put it all together. James 1, verse 4. So let it grow. Somebody say, let it grow. He says, let it grow. Just let it grow. Make the faith decision over time and let it go wild, baby. Let it compound over 25 years at 10% and look at it and just see what you got. Let it grow. For when your endurance is fully developed, listen to these words. If you are looking for these words in your life, James just told you how to find them. For when your endurance is fully developed, you will be perfect and complete, needing nothing. Wow. That word for needing nothing, it's a Greek word, means whole portion. In other words, you're not getting a piece of the cake anymore, you're getting a whole cake. How many of you are looking forward to a whole cake on Sunday afternoon? I want a whole cake this Sunday afternoon. I don't want no little piece of it. Get my kids out of here and give them something else. I want the cake. I want the whole thing, right? He's saying you will be perfect and complete, needing nothing. Let me give you an equation. Guys, do we have that? Did I send you all that? Oh, man, you are so good. Here it is. This is your equation, perfect and complete. You want to be there? Here it is. It is your faith, which informs your action, plus endurance, which is time, equals complete, perfect, needing nothing. How do I get to a place where my soul is so satisfied that I need nothing? How do I get to a place where my spirit is so good I need nothing? I'm not anxious, I'm not worried, I'm not freaking out, I'm not concerned, but I have everything that I need. Now listen, you can have one or the other. You can have endurance, you can have time with the wrong actions and you don't feel complete. Like, man, I'm missing something. I haven't been doing something right the past 10 years. Something's not clicking. You can have faith without the time and not feel complete. You know how many 20-year-olds I meet that want to transform the world, want to be a missionary and save everybody and transform the campus and everything, and been a Christian for 3 days? I'm like, yeah, I'm with you. I'm in, but you need some time under that. You need some endurance under that. You need to stretch a little bit, right? You need the right actions with the right endurance and time to come to a place of complete. Let me finish with the cry of the book of James, and here's where we will land now and carry on. How many of you know when we enter into a season, I love being in seasons with you because it's just one big message, part after part after part. So part 2 will be next week. Here's the cry of the book of James. My son watches YouTube while I do my devotions in the morning, right? He wakes up a little after I do, and so I give him a tablet, and he takes a tablet, and he's watching YouTube, and I usually have headphones in, and I study and read my Bible, and he'll climb up with me, and we'll pray a little, and then he'll mess up the lines in my Bible, and then he'll go back down and start watching his tablet again. And so for some reason, my headphones, thank the Lord, weren't charged at this time, so I didn't have them in, so I could hear the video playing while I was reading my Bible, and I heard a cuss word come from the YouTube clip. Now, how many of you know YouTube will turn your 4-year-old into a 16-year-old really, really quick, right? They start watching these videos made by 13-year-olds, and now he wants to build a ramp off the top of the house and ride a skateboard into the pool. I'm like, son, what's happened? He's like, I saw it on YouTube. You know, like that's his world now. So he's watching this YouTube clip, and I hear this cuss word, and I said, I paused for a minute. I was like, no way. And I looked over, and it was this animated. It looked like a cartoon, but then I heard these sexual innuendos coming from, and I was like, whoa. And I looked over again, and it was an animated clip, but it had a woman in a bikini and a man who was cussing at her and making these inappropriate comments to her. And I said, no, sir, give me that tablet right now. You know when you catch your 4-year-old in something that they shouldn't be doing, but they had a piece of them that liked it? It broke. He said, no. He said, no, I want this, Daddy. And I said, no, it's not a negotiation. Give me the tablet. Like right now, he starts crying. He starts crying, Daddy, I want to watch this. I like this show. This is good. And I said, son, I literally started pleading with him. I said, son, no, that's garbage. That's junk. That's a path to the bottom, son. You do not want that. Give me the tablet now. And he walked over to me, and he was crying, and he handed me the tablet, and I set it down, and I said, son, listen to me. I said, if that comes on a tablet again when you're watching it, what are you going to do? And he had tears in his eyes. He was crying. He said, Daddy, he said, I'll change it. I'll change it. And I said, you have to change it. And he said, I promise I'll change it. I said, promise me that you will. And he said, I promise you I will. I promise you, Daddy, I will. Why? Why am I'm pleading for his action. And I said, son, Jesus is not happy with this. Jesus doesn't want this. Let's pray about this because Jesus doesn't want this in your life. What am I trying to do to my 4-year-old? I'm begging him for his actions to align with his faith because there will come a day when he is 16 and he is on his own and he has something inappropriate placed in front of his face, I want his faith informing his actions. I want that conviction to drop into his heart of when I was 4, I saw this one time, and my daddy was so frustrated, and he told me that Jesus wasn't happy, that right now, even though everything in me wants to look, wants to watch, wants to have it, I know my faith wouldn't want me to do that, and that's what informs me. That's the path of maturity. That's the cry of the book of James, and that's where we're headed in the future weeks.
Everybody, thanks again for joining us. We believe God has something great for your life, and we hope this message encouraged you to take the next step in your faith. Have a great week.